Alright, so guys, today we will discuss it about the disaster management, and hopefully these materials can give you beneficial, because the next semester, next semester, you will face the disaster management, and yeah, these materials in the first semester only give you the principle of disaster management, or give you a brief of disaster management. Well, actually, if you talking, if you heard about the disaster, what is the disaster means in your mind? So actually, if we just thinking about the disaster word, before we start to discuss about what is disaster management, or how can we do the disaster management. So actually, disaster itself is a serious disrupting occurring over a short or long period of time that causes widespread human, materials, economic, or environment loss which exceed the ability of the affected community or society to cope using its own resource. So if we just make the definition which which to source I take from the disaster management book, and then law number 24 of 2017. This two is just similar, but yeah. For the book Disaster Management Handbook, disaster is an event, natural or man-made, sudden or progressive, which has a massive impact, so that the affected community must respond with external action as the usual. However, in Law Number 24 of 2017 concerning disaster management, Chapter 1, Article 1, Paragraph 1, say that a disaster is an event or series of events that threatens and disrupt the life and livelihood of the community, causes both by natural factors, non-natural factors, as well as human factors, resulting in human casualties, environment damage, property loss, and physical impact. So both say that the disaster management can made by man-made or human, or maybe natural, but by the natural. While for your information, that developing countries suffer the greatest cost when a disaster hits. More than 95% of all death causes by hazard occur, and in developing countries, and losses due to the natural hazard are 20 times greater in developing countries than in industrial countries. So no matter what society disaster occur in, they tend to induce change in government and social life. They may even alter the course of history by broadly affecting entire population and exposing mismanagement or corruption, regardless of how tightly information is controlled in a society. So yeah, actually, the disaster occur mostly in developing country, because it can be less of preparedness, less of mitigation, and then they do not prepare with the building, with the infrastructure, with the education, and so on and so forth. So in the last paragraph, I mentioned that in paragraph 2, 3, and 4, disasters are divided into three categories based on their causes, which are natural hazard or natural disaster, non-natural disaster, or we can call it man-made, and a social disaster. Well, actually, again, I hope you can download it, the law number 24 of 2007, because it is important to you to to know what is the content of the law, and then what is the what is the um, what are a government include in the law, and then what is the disaster, how they develop, or how they do the disaster management. So all the content, or all the you know um, materials, or all of the uh, how government do for the disaster is on the law number 24 and 2017. So I hope you can download, and then you can just brief reading, not to be detailed, because maybe in the next semester you will have the specific disaster management course. So it's just for your preparation. Well, um, okay, if we see the category, when we see the from the type of disaster management, a disaster definition according to the category. Okay, here the definition, for the natural disaster or natural hazard, are disaster caused by an event or a series of events caused by nature, among others, in the form of earthquake, tsunami, volcano eruption, floods, drought, hurricanes, and landslide. Well, that's the example. Another thing is, to be simple. A natural disaster is a natural process or phenomenon that may cause loss of life, injury, or other health, impact property damage, loss of livelihoods and services, social and economic disruptions, and environment damage. Okay, I already mentioned that various phenomena like earthquakes, landslide, maybe volcanic eruptions, maybe floods, and then tornadoes, blizzard, tsunami, typhoons, and so on and so forth. So again, a developing country suffer more or less chronically from natural disaster due to ineffective communication combined with an insufficient budgetary allocation for disaster prevention and management. So that's the fact that mostly for the developing country, they just less of the communication, or maybe even less of the budget. So um, yeah, that's for the natural hazard or natural disaster. And then second one is non-natural disaster. It means that like the mistake for the technology, or even the like epidemic, and so on and so forth. So Well, actually, non-natural disaster is like now we feel or now we live with COVID-19 epidemics, right? So yeah, that's the non-natural disaster. And um, it the non-natural disaster commonly just say like man-made disaster or human-made disaster. So that's yeah, again, that's the consequence of the technology or human hazard. For example, include the fires, transport accidents, industrial accidents, oil spills, terrorists, oh no, nuclear radiation, and so and so forth. So yeah, and then for the last one is social disaster is a hazard that is caused by event or a series caused by humans, which include social conflict. So actually, non-natural disaster, it can, yeah, for the non-natural disaster is by also by human, but its impact to the technological value, global warming, and so and so forth. But for the social disaster, it caused by human also, but it make the conflict, like for example terrorism, and then conflict between communities or between a religion, and so and so forth. Yeah, that's two differences, but um, a bit similar. All right, so what about the disaster management itself? If we already know about the disaster, well, actually, disaster management here is defined as an applied science that seeks by systematic observation and analysis of disaster to improve measures related to the prevention, mitigation, preparation, emergency response, and also the recovery. And the other things is disaster management can be defined as we know the picture here, can be defined as the organization and management of resource and responsibilities for dealing with all humanitarian aspect of emergencies. In particular, yeah, you can see that preparedness, response, recovery in order to lessons to impact of disaster. Well, yeah, the first people to respond to a disaster are those living in the local community. Of course, I agree. And then there are first to the start rescue and relief operation. The Red Cross and Rescue National Societies therefore focus on the community-based disaster preparedness, which assists community to reduce their vulnerability to disaster and strengthen their capacities to resist them. So yeah, well, for the disaster management, yeah, we can see that there are 4 points here, as we can see, like prevention, mitigation, preparation, emergency response, and recovery. That's we call it the cycle of a disaster management. And okay, so there are 8 things, the main phase and function of management in disaster management. So what is the important thing in disaster management? So I already put 8 point here. First is planning. So planning is we have to know or we have to identify the disaster problem that appears in local community. For example, if we let's say that we live in Yogyakarta, so how many disaster or how many disaster problem that we can see, and then maybe it can be happen in our city, like for example a volcano, or maybe tsunami, or maybe virus, and so forth. So remember why planning is important, because we should identify, and then planning is for the preparedness and mitigation, because um, for that for that mitigation, and maybe until we can prepare, so we can minimize the risk of a disaster of or hazard itself. So second one is organizing, um, like regulating, so that organizing is an arrangement in the division of labor. So this one is how we can do. I mean, like we believe that government cannot work alone. So government need somebody, or anybody to help, like NGO, private sector, and um, community itself. So that's organizing. So the organizing means that we put the institution that related with the disaster management, so we can uh, have the teamwork to tackle the disaster. And then the important thing is about the leadership. So because based on the leader, what we will do for the disaster. So the leadership is important thing, I think. Like yeah, because that because the leader can give the coaching, directing, guidance, and so forth. And then coordinating, it seems like organizing, but coordinating is how we do uh, how do we the communication, how we can make a sense of belonging to take a part or be able to participate. Like for example, as I mentioned before, government is coordinating with the for example, the NGO, and then private sector, and then community. And then control. Control is an word to control, to supervise, evaluate. So control and supervision is similar things that we can say that they go through together. So control means that we control and supervision. We should ensure that the human, or the people that we just work together um, can suitable, or can capable with their work. And then yeah, minimize the corruption, minimize the damage, or something else. And then yeah, the control and supervising is important. All right. So budget and finance is also important thing here. Well, because as I mentioned before, that mostly developing country, um, mer- uh, mostly the developing country is ineffective and efficient to tackle the disaster, because loss of budget. So budget is very important to make to allocate the budget to maybe building the infrastructure, or maybe give the socialization and education for the people, and so forth. So well, basically, again, I mentioned that disaster management aims to reduce or avoid the potential losses from hazard, assure prompt and appropriate assistance to victims of disaster, and achieve rapid and effective recovery. Well, um, if you see the picture here, I already also mentioned about the disaster management is very dynamic process, because if we can see, the disaster management cycle illustrate that the ongoing process by which government, business, and civil society, including NGO, plan for and reduce the impact of disaster, react during and immediately following a disaster, and take the step to recover after disaster and that has occurred. So appropriate action at all points in the cycle lead to the greater preparedness, better warnings, reduced vulnerability, or the prevention of disaster during the next iteration of the cycle. So here the complete disaster management cycle includes the shaping of public policies and plans that either modify the causes of a disaster or mitigate their effects on people, on property and infrastructure. Well, yeah, if we see again, I mentioned that if we before the disaster, there are mitigation and preparedness. However, if there is disaster happen, so we should have the emergency response and also the recovery. Well, yeah, the mitigation and preparedness phase occur as disaster management improvement are made in anticipation of a disaster event, right? So developmental consideration play a key role in contribution to the mitigate and preparation of a community to effectively confront a disaster. So as a disaster occurs, disaster management actors, in particular humanitarian organizations, become involved in the immediately response and long-term recovery phase. So the four disaster management passes illustrated here do not always or even generally occur in isolation or in this precise order. Often, phases of the cycle overlap and the length of each phase greatly depends on the severity of the disaster. So that's why I call that basically disaster management is very dynamic process. So here the keyword um, that we can say, and then you just remember about disaster management is two things here. Yeah, disaster management is very dynamic process as I mentioned before, and also the work together or have the teamwork between many stakeholders is a key point to tackle the disaster. Okay, so that's the disaster risk management. Well, actually, we have we have three phases here. Um, for the risk for the disaster risk management, first of all is risk management, and then second one is emergency management, and also the recovery management. So for the risk management itself, the including of risk management is a prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. So the risk management is arrangement of a disaster management evolved with an emphasis on factors that reduce risk in a planned, coordinated, integrated, and comprehensive manners before the occur of the disaster with the phase. So actually the mitigation or in this risk management is how minimizing the effort of disaster. For example, is um, building codes and zoning, vulnerability analysis, and also have the public education. For the preparedness itself is about the planning how to respond. Mitigate is minimizing the effect of disaster, but preparedness is planning how to respond. Okay, so yeah, I already tell you about these two things, right? I mean, three things: the prevention, mitigation, and also the preparedness. Well, actually, in this space, there is also an early warning, which is a series of activities to provide immediately warning to the community about the possibility of a disaster in a place by an authorization institution. So, like for example, it's already siaga satu, or it's already waspada, very warning, and so on and so forth. Well, for the second one is emergency management. The key point is how to reducing the number of losses, right? So uh, it means that the response effort to minimize the hazard created by a disaster, for example, search and rescue, emergency relief, and so on and so forth. And then the last one is recovery management. Recovery management is there are two things: rehabilitation and reconstruction. Well, actually, recovery means that returning the community to the normal. How for example, is make the temporary housing, like give the grants and then give the medical care, and so on and so forth. Okay, before we go through the example as I give to you, um, actually, disaster management is one to uh, support the sustainable development, because yeah, we know that many country face the disaster, and then how disaster management can tackle the disaster and support the sustainable development. Well, development consideration contribute to all aspects of disaster management cycle. One of the main goals of disaster management and one of its strongest link with development is the promotion of sustainable livelihoods and their protection and recovery during disaster and emergencies. Where this goal is achieved, people have a greater capacity to deal with disaster, and their recovery is more rapid and long-lasting. In a development-oriented disaster management approach, the objectives are to reduce hazard, prevent disaster, and prepare for emergency. So that therefore, development considerations are strongly represented in the mitigation and preparedness phase of the disaster management cycle. So, inappropriate development process can lead to increased vulnerability to disaster and loss of preparedness for emergency situation. So that's the key point. Why actually all fase is important, but the important thing to tackle or to minimize the the risk of disaster is in mitigation and preparedness. So here, for example, I give you the example for the COVID-19 disaster management, because yeah, we know that the next meeting you will talk a lot with COVID-19, but here I just give you a brief. So the type of COVID-19 disaster management is non-natural disaster, or maybe we can call it the man-made disaster. And then what about the mitigation? So in Indonesia, have the implementation of social distancing, and in the large of social distancing, PSBB, closing all access that bring crowds of people. And then for the mitigation, the government make the formation of the COVID-19 task force, and then give the web-based information updated, because many government just make the you know just make the website to provide real information for the society. And in the field of government budget, has transferred nearly 80% of the budget allocation to the COVID-19 management. And then what about the preparedness? Preparedness is how to, um, minimizing or planning to respond the disaster with the rapid test, PCR swab, or antigen swab, and so forth. And then emergency response, government try to give the uh, to 24 hours hospital, and then sub-district and village level has the COVID-19 task force to minimize, if there is a crowds of people. Yeah, the satgas or the task force should, um yeah, like stop it, and then, yeah, give people education that it cannot be happen here because blah 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 blah. And then about the recovery, yeah, I just said that for the recovery, especially in economic sector, because now we know that many people cannot work, and then our economic is just go down. So I just, in general, in like Indonesia, especially the economic sector is very very vital here to improve or to um, upgrade the economic. Like for example, now the government just make all aspect of the economic with the digital, with through the ICT. Yeah, that's the point. So for your task is, it's simple. You just give storytelling about the disaster management in your region. Because, yeah, I believe that even a central government already have many instruction or many policy to be applied in region. But again, every region have their potential, have their different situation. So I just want to know, you can tell that what they do for this disaster. Like for example, mitigation, some uh, because in the national arena, or national uh, government or president, not um, you know not don't say that we implement or we apply the lockdown. But then some region in the beginning, like Tagal, already locked down their region. So you can just give the storytelling. You can type as detailed as you can. So please just make sure that me or Pawang can understand what you say in a discussion. So if you have any question, please let me know. And then, yeah, this is only brief of the disaster management. Hopefully you can, it's can give you the beneficial for your uh, you know your future in the next semester. And then please keep healthy, and see you for the next video. Thank you so much.